okay. I think the camera looks pretty good. Turn down. Okay.
Is it on?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hello, 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 everybody. I admire your tenacity to come back again tonight to this website or channel or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, tonight I thought I'd talk about Lori and second child. And Lori was born March 21st, 1955. Doyle was in the service. We lived in Portland, Oregon. And Mark was 14 months old when she was born. But anyway, while we were in Portland, I found I was pregnant and so on. And Doyle kept having morning sickness. I never had morning sickness with any child. I was so lucky. But Doyle was in there throwing up in the mornings. I did not know why, neither did he. But anyway, one day he got really, really sick and was throwing up worse. And he was at work, and so they thought he should go to the hospital. So they took him out to the hospital across the river from Portland in Washington. And he had appendicitis. They took him to the Air Force Hospital there, and he had appendicitis. And so just a week or two before he got out of the service and we came home, he had his appendix out, which was really nice for us because, you know, once he was out of the service, there would be no insurance whatsoever. And this way the service paid for the whole birth and everything. Anyway, he went in and had his appendix out, and then it was time to come back to Pocatello. I was at least 8 months along, maybe a little more. And the doctor said, no, you can't drive home. That's too many hours in the car. Can't do it. Fly? No, you can't fly. That pressure might not be good for you up there. Take the train. And so Doyle put me in a suitcase and little Mark that was 11 months old on the train. That was the most miserable night of my life, I believe. Mark would not sleep. He woke up every 10-15 minutes all night. And the conductor was mean to me. The train was empty except for about 20 people, and those box cars are big. Those passenger cars are big, and there were only about 20 people, so there were many, many, many seats open. And so I put Mark beside me on the seat, and I was in my seat. Well, the conductor came on. You have not paid for that seat. You may not use it. I couldn't believe it, so I pulled out the little footrest and sat on it all night with Mark on the seat. He was so ornery. Nowadays I'd have stood up to him, but in those days it was yes or no, sir. Anyway, we got home. We moved in with Mom, and a month later I had Lori. She was a beautiful little girl with big blue eyes and dark hair and almost long enough for a ponytail. She was in a ponytail by the time she was 8 months old. She had lots of hair, lots of pretty hair. She was a good baby. I was very anemic, and so I was down, couldn't do anything or go anywhere for about 10 or 15 days after she was born. And Mom fed me a lot of liver to make my blood come back up, and I was having shots for it. But I was weak, and it was hard for me to have him and her 14 months and new. But my mother worked, so I was alone with them all day, and then in the evenings she'd kind of take over and I'd go lay on the couch all night. Anyway, her and Mark got along very well, and Holly, you're going to have to prompt me. I wrote a list. This is what my notes look like, you kids. You know, my eyes are, and so I have to write it big, and even then I can't really see it. Anyway, what I know I jumped there.
That's okay. You said Portland, AM sickness. You talked about that. March 21st, 1955. lived with parents, blue eyes, long dark hair, temper, stairs was the next
Temper,
thing.
that's the one. Okay. Lori, believe it or not, knowing Lori now, I'm sure you won't believe this, but she had the biggest temper of any of my children. She would get mad, she'd pound her head on the floor until we moved into an apartment with a cement floor. She quit. But she was just mad, and she'd throw fits, and so tantrums. And so one day when she was about 4.5, she was mad, and we were sassing each other and hollering back and forth, and she went stomping over and walking backwards and saying, "Yes, I will," or whatever. And suddenly she hit the top step and fell clear down the basement steps. And I was horrified and jumped up and ran to pick up her little body. And she was coming up the stairs just stomping and still sassing me. It made me laugh.
That's funny.
Yeah, and she decided at that point, maybe later, I don't know, at some point before she was 7 or 8, she decided that she would not have that temper.
I
And
think
she,
we talked about that last week. Was it
Did
when
we?
she kicked the window?
yeah,
she
with
cut her
her
foot?
shoe and cut her foot. Yeah,
And she decided she wasn't going to do that anymore. That's pretty neat.
yeah, it is.
Okay, Grandma, just so you know, Debbie's on here, Sydney, Krista,
Hi, Sydney. I
and
haven't
Jamie.
seen you forever. And who else?
Jamie, and Carissa.
Hi, Jamie and Carissa. If you guys think of something I should tell, let Holly know.
Okay, so you have when 3 Debbie was born.
Oh, okay. Yes. When Lori was about 2, I started, oh, I want another baby. And so I had Debbie when Lori was about 3. And the next year I had Jenny. And so now there were 4 under 5, which was quite a handful. But anyway, they were cute and sweet little kids, and we had a lot of fun together. Lori learned how to do a headstand, and she would get on her head, and she could stay there for a long time. We were all amazed at how she could do that.
Doug just got on too.
Oh, hi, Doug. And then, I told you the trouble Mark had starting 1st grade. Lori was a little apprehensive about it, and she'd come home just sad. And finally she got a picture of me, excuse me, and took it to school with her. And I guess looking at the picture helped her. She never refused to go or anything. She just was lonesome at first.
Okay,
Darn
you
it, I
have-
haven't coughed all day.
You have Twin Falls, Dad, Steels.
Okay, when Lori and Mark were about, let's see, what have I got?
Twin Falls, and then you just have Dad, Steels.
I don't know what that is. What's the next one?
Okay, 1 month with visits.
Oh, yes. Okay, I had Debbie, and Lori was 3 and Mark was 4. And I had an infection. I had her on March 20, no, that's the other one. Oh,
You have March 21st, 1955.
doing this on camera is hard because your brain kind of goes, "Ah." No, that's when Debbie was born.
My mom was born April 26th.
Okay, April 26th, and I got an infection. So I stayed at Mom's with Debbie, and Mark and Lori stayed at Virgie's, Doyle's mother's. And Doyle went back to work in Twin Falls, so our family was just all split apart. And I laid in that bed for 30 days.
So you got an infection with
Debbie. After I had Debbie, I got it.
And didn't you have an infection after you had Jenny too? Because didn't my mom have to go live somewhere
That
else
was
for a while?
a different story.
Oh, that wasn't right after you
That
were
was-
born.
no.
Okay.
No, when Debbie was born, I know on May 21st, my birthday, almost a month later, he took me, Doyle came for the weekend, every weekend. He put me in the car and took me out on Hawthorne Road to see all the beautiful spring growth. But it was hard.
That
It was
would be
so
hard.
hard to be away from my family. And Roy and Virgie were wonderful. And they would bring Mark and Laurie over to visit and see me and the baby. But, you know, it was hard for those little kids to be away from mom and dad that long. When Jenny was born, they counted wrong. I thought I was going to have Jenny in June, and it turned out I had her a month early because they forced labor. But anyway, I went to the doctor one afternoon, and he said, "You are going to have this baby any day. Don't you travel, don't even go 1 inch out of town, because you just can't. You've got to be near a doctor with your problems. You can't have the baby on your own." And so Roy and Virgie came that weekend, and when, you know, I told them what the doctor had said, they said, "Well, we'll just take Mark and Laurie home with us now. And, you know, because you're going to have the baby this week, any day, any minute." Well, 30 days went by before I just was a basket case by then.
Good.
And so the doctor said, "Well, I'll start you." And he started me, but it wouldn't go. And finally, I don't know what he did, but he finally got me going. But those little kids, Debbie and Mark and Laurie, were a whole month with Grandma and Grandpa, and they didn't come and visit. They didn't see me at all in that month.
Wow.
And the night that I had her, Roy and Virgie came up, and I remember looking out of the hospital window and waving at Mark and Laurie and Debbie. But, you know, they couldn't come in. They didn't let little kids in those days.
That's sad.
Anyway, I came home you were in the hospital 3 days in those days when you had a baby. And so when I came home 3 days later, then they left. And it was hard and fun. You know, no automatic dishwasher, no automatic wash machine, no dryer.
A lot of work.
And no paper diapers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamie said, "My mom still talks about this. It really affected her." And Haley is on, and David is on.
Hi,
so
guys.
And Mike.
Oh,
Mike is on.
good. Hi, Mike. You're
Yeah.
a newcomer.
One question I had, just really quick, with all your births, or you know, with Lori, weren't you put completely out? You don't remember
I
anything?
was put out completely with Mark, the first one, and Doug, the last one,
Oh, okay.
and not with the others.
Okay. Let's see. You have 1 more month with grandkids.
That
no visits.
was-
Oh, that's what you just talked about. Okay. Apartment in Twin, Lilac Tree.
Oh, yes. Doyle got a different job. He was an apprentice carpenter, and he kind of didn't like being in work clothes and all that. I don't know. Anyway, this friend talked him into coming to Twin Falls and being an insurance adjuster type thing. Or no, it was a loan company, and he was what they called the spook. He was the one that went out and tried to collect from people that hadn't paid their bill. Anyway, he worked there, and we rented an apartment. It was on Blue Lakes North, 256 Blue Lakes North, and it was a big building with an apartment upstairs and 2 on the main floor. And we had one on the main floor. There was a Russian family that lived upstairs, grandmother, daughter, and granddaughter. And the grandmother didn't speak much English at all. And so one day, Lori, there was this huge lilac tree in the back. I mean, it was big. and Lori was climbing in that lilac tree, and she was 4. And that Russian grandmother come running downstairs and went out in the yard, and I heard something, and I looked out there, and the Russian grandmother was, "Do not climb that tree, you will hurt yourself." And Lori put her hands on her little hips, and she said, "Well, lady, you're not the boss of the whole world." I was so glad that woman didn't speak much. She had no idea what Lori had said. Anyway, she was quite the feisty little girl. And one day, Mark and Lori, there was another big old house next door to us, and there was an outside stairway and then a little widow's walk up on the top of the house. One day, who knows what motivated him? He was, they were 4 and 5 years old. I don't even think Mark was 5 yet. They went down the cellar, one of those doors would open like that, and picked up some empty canning jars, quart canning jars, climbed those stairs, and got up on the widow's walk and dropped the bottles off to watch them break.
Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh. And the man that lived there, he lived there with his mother. I went over and knocked on the door and said, "My children, broke some bottles." And he said, "Oh, that's okay. It's all right. I'll take care of it." And I looked him right in the eye and I said, "No, they need to know that they cannot do that. That's your property, not theirs." So he said, "Don't you do that again." And that was the end of it. But they got in trouble a few times. They were fun.
My mom said you could talk about how she didn't talk until she used complete sentences.
Yeah. Mark did the talking for Lori. He never crawled. And so when she started crawling, he got down on his hands and knees and crawled with her until she stood up and started walking. And so he would tell me what she wanted. And when she was almost 3, I was getting worried about her. We didn't have speech therapists and all that stuff then, but I was getting a little worried about her. And one day she come in the kitchen and said, "Mom, what's for dinner?" or something like that. I mean, when she first started talking, it came out as complete sentences. Blew me away. I didn't think a little kid could do that.
Let's see. Love little sisters.
Oh, she adored those kids. She treated them like baby dolls, the little Debbie and Jenny.
That's cute. She was serious and sweet.
Yeah, she was serious and sweet. That's Lori.
Let's see. You have Snoop arm pain.
Okay. We moved back to Pocatello, and the adventures continued. And then we moved out on Sorrel, and we had the acre and the horse and all that. And Lori loved to ride Snoop, and she rode him a lot. And one day she came in and my arm hurts, and Doyle had her do stuff and said, "It isn't broken, it's just really sore." Well, I don't know how much longer. I thought it was about 3 days, but somebody said it was a whole week. I took her with me to do my Amway business in Idaho Falls. And on the way home, I said, "Lori, tell me about your arm. How much does it hurt, really?" And she says, "Mom, it really hurts." She hadn't complained much at all. So I went straight to the doctor's office, and he said it was broken.
Oh, wow.
But Lori had a high threshold to pain. She really has a high threshold of pain.
She must.
When she had that appendicitis, she didn't do anything about it. For 30 days, she laid on that couch just in pain, but not like I would have been the doctor in 2 days or less. But anyway, the appendix burst, but it encapsulated itself. I think that's how you say it. And so for 30 days, she suffered with this burst appendix. Finally, she went to the doctor, and they told her she was lucky to be alive.
Wow. Okay, you have first grade, picture of me, and jump rope pies.
I told that.
Oh, you did? Okay. Sorrel friends.
She had a lot of friends, and one of them developed kind of early, and the girls started calling her mountains or peaks or something. But what got Lori's goat is they called her valleys.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Crystal just joined and Poonch.
Hi, Crystal and Poonch.
Okay, we have high school, Keith.
Yes, Lori, we had a neighbor boy down the street named Keith Palmer. Handsome, nice little young man. And Lori dated him quite steadily for quite a long time. You'd have to ask her how long. He was a nice boy, and they went to church and all this and that. But she gave up on him. She didn't stay with him. She broke up with him. That's what I was trying to say.
And then young adults and Dell.
Oh, yes. She got out of high school, joined the young adults at church, and this handsome missionary came home. And he had blue eyes that just, wow. He was a good-looking boy. And they just fell madly in love. And they didn't go together very long. They got married.
Yeah, how long was it?
Oh, I don't
Remember?
know. How long, Lori?
I don't know if she's on here. Maybe Jamie or my
Yeah,
mom will
Jamie,
know.
how long did they go together? I think it was only a couple
Yeah, I
of
was gonna
months.
say, wasn't it just even weeks or something? Or am I
Yeah.
getting? Yeah.
Not very long. I'll never forget, though, when Dale came to ask if he could marry our daughter. We were down in where we kept the Amway supply, all the shelves and the washer and dryer were there. And they came in there, and they were both just a light. And he asked if he could marry her.
That's cute. Jamie said 3 months.
3 months.
Oh,
Okay.
they're on a cruise. Lori and Dell
Oh, that's where they are. No wonder I couldn't get her.
And my mom said she worked at Jumbo's.
Oh, she did. Yeah.
What was
and
Jumbo's?
it was a
Food?
little
Fast food?
restaurant.
Oh,
A
restaurant.
little restaurant, and her best friend Desiree, her mom owned it, and so they let Lori work there too, and she liked it.
As a
she-
waitress or
Yeah,
cook
as a
or
waitress. And then she went to work at a drugstore for our bishop, and worked there for a while, and then married Dale. And
It says first child to marry in the temple. She never quit the church.
she was our first child to marry. And you know, when she and Dale went to the temple and went in to get married, it didn't bother me. Which I look back and I think, oh, that's horrible. But it didn't bother me. I thought, this is what she wants. I admire the Mormon church. It's good. It's fine. I don't, if that's what they want. And so they got married.
That says a lot about you, Grandma, that you let her have that choice. That's pretty. I think that'd be really hard on a parent.
It would if they understood the gospel and the word and I wasn't raised with it. I didn't.
But it seems like that would make you more likely to be, to not understand, to not be able to go in. Let's see. My mom said you could tell what a flirt she was.
Lori had a lot of guys that liked her. In fact, I was walking one day up the hill on the Highland, and this young man came out and said, "Aren't you Lori Chatterton's mother?" "Yes." He said, "Oh, I just adored that girl. I had such a crush on her." Yeah, she had a lot of
She's
boyfriends.
a heartbreaker.
I remember one night she had, or at least one night, she had 2 dates. One at 6 to 8 and one 8:30 to whatever. She was quite the girl.
That's funny. Okay, you have Dale ISU.
Yes, when they got married, Dale was going to Idaho State University as a chemical engineer student. And Lori worked for a while, but she got pregnant with Ryan fairly rapidly. And so she had Ryan and Mark and Jamie. And who's next?
Scott.
Scott. In 4 years. She had those 4 kids. So she really had her hands full. I remember one day, a few years later, not right then, but one day I called her up and she says, "Oh, Mom, it's so nice to hear from somebody that's taller than my knees." Because, in those days, the men worked. Well, they might have had 2 cars. I don't know. But I know that she was pretty much stuck at home with the kids, which is where she wanted to be. When all of my kids, Lori and Debbie and Mark and all, were young, Lori might have been 7 or 8. Mom, we were all at my mother's, and she had them all write a little paper about what they wanted to be when they grew up. And years later, we looked at it, and Lori had written, "I want to be a mother and have lots of children," or something to that effect.
True.
It did. And then she had Kyle, I think. She had, what are the dates? She had Ryan in 76 and Kyle in 82, is that right?
Right, yep.
Okay, so then Kyle and Michael and AJ, and that's when I asked her, she had 8 boys. She had 8 children. And I said, "Lori, how many do you plan to have?" She says, "More than 8, less than 20. In other words, shut up, Mom. Anyway, then she had Josh. And then I told you the story about the twins when Mark came to her in a dream. And so then she had the twins, and they are just now coming home from missions. Ashley went to Paraguay. Matt went to Florida. It's wonderful.
My mom said too, she was always a friend to everyone.
Lori was, yeah.
And Doug said, "Lori was the nicest sister when I was a preteen. When she worked at Jumbo, she brought me a model car called the Red Baron. Wasn't my birthday or anything."
Well, that was nice.
That is nice.
Yeah, I didn't know that or didn't remember it. Anyway, the kids started growing up and everything. When Ryan was going to go to 1st grade, Lori called me one day and said, "Mom, can you come out? I want to talk to you." And of course you think, "Oh no, what's wrong? Leukemia? What's going on? Which child is sick, or what's going on?" I went out there and she sat me down at the table very seriously and said, "Mom, I'm going to homeschool." And I said, "What? You can't do that. You don't know how to be a teacher. The kids won't get socialization. You can't do that. Don't even think about it." Blah, blah, blah. I went on and on. And she just sat there and listened to me. And finally she says, "Well, Mom, I guess that really just isn't any of your business." Can you believe she'd say that to Mom? Anyway, she homeschooled. And I'm sure she did a good job, because when Ryan, I think that when he first went back to school, I think it was high school. I think he was going into high school. I'm not sure though. Anyway, she homeschooled. One day she went to a homeschoolers convention, I think it was in Utah. She saw these felt products, patterns stamped onto felt, and it would be like learning tools, numbers and math and I don't know what all. And she was thrilled with it, and she thought, "I want to sell this. I love this stuff. I want to sell it." And so she contacted the lady that made the felts and talked to her about it. She started a business. I think she called it the Storyteller at first. And her and Dale put the manufacturing machine in the garage, the business, paper stuff in the basement, in the family room, and they started a business. And I was thrilled to death, because I had done Amway. I was still doing Amway at that point. And I thought, isn't that wonderful? Entrepreneurs. Anyway, my dad's family, there were 7 children, and all but one run their own business.
Oh, wow.
They were all entrepreneurs. And I thought, boy, it just runs in the family. Anyway, they were very successful. Lori designed things that were big sellers, and Debbie painted them. I should have brought up that piece I've got. They put out catalogs. They had distributors all over the United States, and those distributors loved Lori. We went on a cruise with them, with the whole, if you met a certain level in her business, they took them on a cruise, and we went with them. And those distributors just raved about Lori and how sweet and good she was and how she handled that big family and the business. Anyway, it wasn't too long until the business was just growing out of all bounds. And so she took on a partner, one of her best sales reps, Patty Gardner. Patty lived in, I think, Arizona, and Lori and Dale lived in Idaho. And so they both moved halfway to Salem, Utah. And the contractor was just building houses on the street. And so Dale and Lori had him build them a house, or maybe bought one he had built, I don't know. And right up the hill, a half a block away, was the warehouse where they could make these felts, sell them out of there, a nice big building. And so they did really well and made good money, and it was wonderful. Until Pac-Man, Z-Box, I don't know the names of all of them, but all this stuff came out. And the felt business kind of went like that. And one of their sales points was it's something that the kids actually feel and touch and learn. And so it did okay, but it wasn't enough anymore. And they bought Patty out. And the business continued to decline. And finally, they let Dale's sister come in and run the factory, run the storyteller. The distributors, they quit having distributors. Her husband, Reed, is a good salesman, and he got some big contracts and this and that. So the Storytell, I think they call it Storytime now, is still going, but Dale and Lori don't run it. Anyway, Lori got a job at a grocery store, loved it, and now she's working at a dental office just 4 days a week. So she just hung in there all those years. Her and Dale are such a good team. Dale's a wonderful man. What else have I got on there?
Well, my mom said to tell what she said when she held a baby. How she felt better when she held them or something like that. Do you remember anything about that?
It was comforting to her. I don't remember. She said something that's quotable, but I don't remember what it was.
We'll have to wait for her to watch this and comment about her wisdom. She is very wise.
Yeah.
Okay, you have Scott pneumonia.
Oh, yes. When Scott was not very old, he got pneumonia, and I remember being up in the hospital with him. She had those other children. I mean, it was hard. Hard. I don't know. Anyway, thank God he survived.
Yeah. Paige just joined, and she said, "Hi, Grandma, I love you."
Hi, Paige. I love all of you.
Okay, let's see. You had, you just have gospel, kind, loving hearts facing retirement.
The kind and loving hearts. Each one of her children have grown up to be wonderful people, and they have loving hearts, which a lot of people don't have. They're wonderful. I'm not a bit proud. How are we doing? Am I about?
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about your child. I mean, you put the whole life into 15 minutes. It's hard. I could just rave about her for hours. She's a remarkable woman, and she's grown to just be. And Lori was the deep thinker. All of my kids read, thank goodness. They all like to read. And Lori is just a deeper thinker, I think, than maybe not, but it seems like she always understood things and came up with different. She always had friends that she and them would analyze stuff. And just a very smart, good woman.
You have.
But she's letting her hair go gray. No, of course I didn't.
You just have facing retirement.
Yeah, they're at that age. Lori is what, 61? That's amazing. It makes me feel old, like I'm a little old lady when my children are getting so old.
Jamie said, she is the best. She is a natural counselor. People go to her with their stuff. I'm her biggest client.
Oh. Are you about cured, Jamie?
And Haley said they do. All the Whiting kids are so sweet.
They are.
And I agree.
They're sweet, good
Just
guys.
kind, yeah.
Mhm.
I like how you said loving hearts. It is.
Yeah, they have
Gentle
loving
hearts.
hearts. Mm-hmm. So that's Lori's story. There's more to it, more to come. I hope she lives to be 100. And the reason I asked her, how many kids are you going to have, is because I thought, all those kids are going to wear her out and she's going to die young and I'll miss her. But she didn't. So how much time have we taken?
It's been about 35 minutes.
35 minutes. Okay. Should we stop?
It's up to you. We can stop this so Lori has her own and then we could start another one.
Okay. All right. I wrote some.
Or you can just keep talking about whoever's next on this same one.
No, I've got to think about it. I
Okay.
mean, it's so hard to do these
Okay.
on the kids because.
Well,
And then
do you
I
have more there to say about
this
something?
is about Amway.
Oh, okay, yeah.
my
I mean, we
Amway
have
business.
It. Yeah, just keep
I
going.
feel like Amway really influenced our family. And it's a business with distributorships. You get distributors to come in on it, and you sell products. And everything we did in Amway was positive and uplifting. Gail and Jerry Harmon were our sponsors into Amway. They lived in Phoenix. And Doyle and I, the kids were, I don't know, Doug was 4, so Mark was 12. And we went on a trip. We went to the Oregon coast, just Doyle and I, to the Oregon coast and then drove up the coast to Portland, Oregon. Wonderful trip. And when we were in Portland, one of the things we liked to do when we traveled was to go to factories and see how they made things. And so we knew that Crown Zellerback was in Vancouver, right across the river from Portland, where Doyle had his appendix out. Anyway, so we made the appointment to go through the Crown Zellerback paper mill. We got there and it was fascinating. And at one point the guide said, now we're going to another building and we don't want all those cars over there. So you go with them, you go with them, you go with them. Well, we got in this couple's car, very sharp couple, and it was Gail and Jerry Harmon. And we introduced ourselves and said a couple of things, and then Gail said, have you kids ever heard of Amway? And I said, no. And Doyle said, well, I've heard of it. Paul Harvey advertised it. I wondered what it was. And boy, they thought, wow, you know, we got some people here. So they invited us to come to their hotel room in Vancouver later that night. And we were staying in Portland with Doyle's aunt for a night or two. And so we went back to their home and ate dinner, and we were like an hour late to get to Gail and Jerry's apartment, but we got there. And they showed us the marketing plan. And I was kind of like, I don't know, I've got 5 kids, I'm busy. And Doyle said, I think we should do it. I think you should do it. You're reading 7 books a week. Maybe you have a little extra time. He thought I'd be great at it. Well, we went ahead and signed up, and it cost $35 to sign up in Amway. We know people who spent that $35 to sign up in Amway and ended up millionaires in Amway. I mean, it is a good business. Sammy, you're right on schedule. Do you want to let him out? If he
You-
won't, he
Well,
won't.
he doesn't follow me.
Well, never
Do you want
mind.
to go and I can just show a picture of Lori or something?
Okay. All
You
right.
can let him
Come
out.
on, Sandy. Come on. That door.
Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah.
I left the door ajar so he can come back in on his own.
I'll just show this one and then keep talking. These are cute.
And you'll put them in on the.
Yeah, I can take pictures of them.
Anyway, so then we came home, and 3 days later, Gail and Jerry came this way on their way back to Phoenix, and we held an Amway meeting in our home. And you know, there's no air conditioning. It was hot, and there were kids playing on the street. And they were noisy, but the couples that came, every one of them signed up for Amway. They all thought it
Wow.
was a great business, and so we started the business. And our goal was to hit direct distributor, which meant you had a certain amount of purchasing in a single month or 3 months in a row or something. I don't remember. Anyway, we made that in 2 years. I set a goal that in 2 years I would be a direct distributor, and we made it. Anyway, it's a selling company, so I put Doug in nursery school from 9 till noon, and he loved it. I stayed right there with him about a week, and then he got so engrossed in it that I started going out. I would go sell in the mornings. I'd get appointments with gals that I knew and go sell to them. And then in the afternoon, I would clean house, do paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the evening, 2 or 3 nights a week, we would invite people to our home and give them the Amway story,
Wow.
and they would sign up. So we ended up with hundreds of distributors. And then they would get Aunt Matilda in Topeka to sign up, and we had people all over the United States. Before we were through, somebody signed up some relatives in Japan. So we had some Japanese people in our group, which was
Wow.
interesting. Anyway, we did that for 15 years.
So how many hours a week?
I don't
average
know.
Was it? You don't.
I don't know. It was a lot of it is mental. If you're going to do a business, you can figure on 14 hours a day minimum. Look at Debbie and Larry, Dale and Lori when they were doing their business. But I felt like we were home enough with the kids and everything. I made sure I was home every afternoon when they got out of school. I felt like that was and then we ate dinner at 6 o'clock sharp. And then if we had a meeting somewhere else, we'd go. And Mark and Lori would babysit. I don't know what went on while we were gone.
That's probably best you don't.
Probably. But anyway, we traveled. I know we gave a speech in Salt Lake, and there were like 1,000 people there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
So
interesting
Grandpa
and fun.
did it with you a lot?
He would
come
go to the
appointments?
meetings with me, yeah. And that's why I'm so raspy. A few years ago, I went to Dr. McGee, because hoarseness is one of the 7 signs of cancer. Anyway, I went to Dr. McGee, and he said, "Are you a singer?" I said, "No, I can't even carry a tune." He said, "Well, you have a singer's voice. You have polyps in your throat, and that's why it's hoarse." Anyway, you could have surgery, but what difference? It doesn't matter that much. Anyway, everything to do with Amway was very positive. We listened to speeches and talks. I know one night in Salt Lake, we heard Zig Ziglar, who was a big motivational speaker in the U.S., Art Linkletter, the TV star that kids say the darndest things. It was just a very uplifting, good business, and I felt like it brought a lot of positive energy into our home. The kids helped me. we would get freight in. They mentioned the big Amway truck that would come in, and then we put some boards on the steps and slid the boxes down to the basement. And then I had open hours where the distributors could come and buy. And that's where I went on Wednesday or Thursday while they were getting ready for the play that night at my house. I would go and deliver Amway and motivate people, and it was fun. I loved that business. But after about 14 years, I kind of got burnt out on it. And Doyle wasn't much interested anymore. He was a contractor by then. And then in 1975, 76, there was a big turn down in the economy. And a lot of contractors in Pocatello went broke, had to go bankrupt with it. And I refused to go bankrupt because I had seen what that did to my dad with his plumbing shop when subcontractors would take bankruptcy. So I said, I will not do that, and Doyle agreed. And so we sold our house on East Chubbuck Road and paid off a lot of the bills that the contracting business had accumulated. And then it took us about 3 or 4 more years of living on beans and rice and paying off those bills. But we came out of it with a good name. We didn't take bankruptcy. I'm so glad we didn't. Anyway, that was, we felt like Amway influenced our children a lot. And Jerry Harmon, the man of the couple, Gail and Jerry, you can't tell which one is the man. Jerry was a stockbroker, very successful. They're one of the couples that ended up millionaires. The money they made, he knew how to invest. We didn't make that much, but we didn't know how to invest either, so we spent what we earned. Anyway, he talked to Doug a lot about what he could do with his life and everything. I felt like he was a good influence on Doug, and Gail was a wonderful influence on me. She, you know, when you have a business like that, sometimes you get people in that you're not real pleased with, but it's their choice to come in. So she said, just find something about them to love. Just find something about them to love. And then if you need to, when they're gone, just say, she gives me a pain where the sun doesn't shine. So,
Good advice.
Yeah, good advice.
My mom said she was always proud of your Amway business.
Oh, that's nice. Good.
And Ben and Jan and Kirsten all joined a
Oh
little
my
bit ago.
goodness. Welcome, welcome. What else did I say on here? I'm probably at the end.
Okay, let's see.
Probably talk.
1966, Mark was 12, Doug 4.
No,
trip to the
don't
coast.
read all that.
Okay.
I've said all that. Look at the very bottom and see what I said. Nothing much, right? Anyway, I felt like Amway had a wonderful effect on us.
Yeah, I
And,
think
you
it
know,
covered it all.
Doyle was such a quiet man. He actually got up and gave speeches, and he really came out of his shell with Amway. It was good for us. But I finally quit, and instead of selling it like I could have, I just geared it down till it was gone. So that was foolish. I should have sold it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. What is it? What's her name does? Pulls her ear for her grandma. Anyway, I'll talk to you next week. I wish you'd all let me know what you want to hear about.
Okay, so you can post questions on here or things you want Grandma to talk about, and we'll get them to her. Let's see.
I hope Doug and them are coming for Thanksgiving. I should have asked him.